千里之行，始于足下。A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together.
So here's the question. What was that Mandarin expression about getting results that matched the work? It was not in the slides. That's right, it was not in the slides. That's really my bad. So I will remedy that before we get into 24 proper. I can spend a moment to tell you about that expression. And it's one of the easy expressions to figure out. So we got good reasons to get into it. So in the Dao community, you will oftentimes hear Chinese cultivators say the following. 多修多得，少修少得，不修不得. That's the expression. So what you heard was the standard pronunciation in Mandarin, and you can tell that it's a relatively short expression, 3 lines, 4 characters per line. And here it's left to right, and then up to down. So what does that mean? What are they talking about when they refer to this? Let's break it down. The first thing to note as you're looking at the Chinese expressions, Chinese characters, even not knowing Mandarin, you can tell just by visual cues, just by visual comparison, that there are quite a few repeating characters. So the repeating characters will help us figure out the meaning in that you only have to decipher a few characters to figure out the whole thing. So probably the first thing that you will notice is that there are characters that repeat throughout the 3 lines. 3 lines, 3 repetitions. So the first one, and remember we're going from left to right, so the first one will be the second character that's repeated 3 times, and then the last character in each line is also repeated 3 times. So a key to understanding this expression is simply to figure out what those repeating characters are. So looking at the second character, that's xiu. So xiu means to cultivate. If I combine this character with the character for Dao, which you will see at the upper right-hand corner of the slide, xiu Dao means to cultivate the Dao. So to cultivate the Dao, it's more like cultivating a field, like a farmer or gardener. You are cultivating the growth of something, in this case, the Dao within you. Now, xiu, the character in Mandarin also is also often used in a different context other than agriculture. Xiu, like xiu li, means to fix or to repair, to correct a problem, to look at a problem, figure out what's wrong, and to take steps to make that problem go away, to repair it. So xiu has that additional context, and I mentioned that because it's actually an important part of Eastern thinking. Here in the slide, you'll say cultivate is an active process of review and remedy in the Asian perspective. Yes, I want to emphasize that because cultivation, spiritual cultivation, I find sometimes has a different connotation in the West. In the West, oftentimes you hear about, accepting what is, to let it go, to meditate, to reflect, to think on something. There's nothing wrong with any of those. It is, however, missing a subtle context from the Asian traditions. And that is, in the Asian traditions, in the Asian perspective, when you cultivate spirituality, it means that you have to actively review what you have done, what you have said, your interactions, the thinking that went into it. You have to review your day and the previous days. You have to identify where things went right and where things went wrong. And this is strictly in accordance with your own standards, that if things went right, then everything was nice and smooth. There was an element of joy that was embedded throughout. If things did not go right, if things went wrong, it means that you felt negative about it. It might have had negative consequences. You might have felt discomfort, irritated, maybe even anger. And maybe you realized that you had done something wrong against someone else. So that is a very active self-review process. And it's not enough from the perspective of Tao cultivation to just think about it. You have to do something about it. So it's not just repent on your own. You also have to remedy the issue somehow, some way, to the extent that you can. And what that action is will vary from situation to situation. Sometimes it's actually to approach someone and apologize. Listen, you know what I said the other day? I really didn't mean that. That came out all wrong. I apologize if it offended you. Sometimes it's simply to put some distance between yourself and the source of the negativity. That requires action as well. Either way, it's not sitting around thinking about your life and then resolving it in your mind. It is not enough in Asian perspective to resolve anything in your mind. You must also take action to the extent that you can in real life. So that's why Xiū, this character, isn't just cultivating the sense of cultivating your garden. It is also to fix, to repair problems. So that's the significance of that character. And I realized as I was putting this together that I had never actually gone into any details about what that character really means. So people just automatically assume, okay, cultivation, just like the English word, it's a little bit different. Now let's take a look at the other character, the last character that's also repeating 3 times. De. So it sounds exactly like de for virtue, but it's actually a different character. It means to get, to acquire, to obtain, or in this context, to attain. The attainment specifically of actual benefits in life. So in the Asian perspective, Tao cultivation is not just something that you do to feel better, to change your mind about something, to make you think about something that perhaps originally was negative and depressing into something that's neutral or perhaps motivating. So in the Eastern perspective, again, it's a little bit different in that benefits are considered to be something that brings practical, pragmatic value to life. Things will actually become better. So as an example, when you take active measures to repair something that you had done wrong in your connection or relationship and interactions with other people, you don't just change the way you feel about it. You will actually, possibly, potentially, likely improve that relationship so that subsequently, the person who might have been offended, might have been hurt, might have been harmed by your remarks can actually become a friend and an ally, so that collaborating with that person to get something done or to interact with that person down the road can actually be much more positive and enriching. So You don't just think differently about your interaction with them, you actually improve it in order to derive actual benefits in real life down the road. So that's attainment of actual benefits in life. So these three lines, you can tell, they connect cultivation with attainment. So what about the characters that are in black? What light can they shed on these three lines? Well, it turns out they're all pretty simple. So let's take a look at them. The other characters, we've got Duō. This is from the first line. You can compare this character with this character here from the first line and the third character from the first line. It means more. So now we have completely decrypted the first line. It's more cultivate, or more cultivation, more attainment. More cultivation leads to more attainment. Okay, that makes sense. What about the second line? You may expect that second line is simply the reverse. You will be correct. Shǎo is the character there, and you'll see the character is less, the opposite of more. So this is now decrypted as less cultivation, less attainment. So in the explanation that I provided surrounding cultivation and attainment, you can see that these two lines are saying the more you actively cultivate to make changes in your life, the more benefits, the more actual practical benefits you will derive in life. Now, the less you do this, the less you pursue an active form of cultivation, then logically the reverse happens, and that is you derive less benefits from your practice. So that makes sense. What about the last line? What about the third line? Well, the character there is bu, and that's one of the most common characters in daily use in modern Mandarin. It just means no or not. So here it basically says no cultivation, no attainment. So now it's easy. We can decrypt all three lines. We'll do a literal transcription. A literal transcription is like a raw first draft translation, and it's usually verbatim, word for word. And that means sometimes it's not as readable as a polished translation. But in this case, though, we can actually do a literal transcription and have it read pretty well, have it be pretty readable in English. More cultivation, more attainment. Less cultivation, less attainment. No cultivation, well, no attainment. So that's what it means. 多修多得, 少修少得, 不修不得. And you can tell what it's trying to say. The reason why many Chinese style cultivators will use this phrase is that in regards to spiritual benefits of the Tao, the more you cultivate, the more you attain those benefits. The less you cultivate, the less you attain. If you do not cultivate, then you will not attain. So that is the expression from last time. It takes many different forms and people say it in different ways, but the overall idea is always the same, that you reap what you sow. So depending on the amount of work and effort and the proper way of practice that you put into it, that's the results that you can expect in life. There are no shortcuts.
Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Let us travel safely. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.